Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Wednesday, episode 16. So we have been participating in this weekly practice now for 4 full months. This is week 16. And I congratulate you for showing up for yourself, for showing up for the other people who are doing this practice with us each week. We are well on our way to making this a habit in our lives, a weekly habit. And I hope that you've noticed ways in which this practice has shifted maybe your thinking or shifted that middle of the week from being kind of a day to a something you look forward to. It's definitely something I look forward to every week. And it's become an integral part of my own practice, sharing my practice with you. So I thank you so much for joining me for these last 4 months. I hope you continue to join me and we grow this practice together. It's interesting, when I first started this, I wondered if I would be able to come up with topics as this went on. This is my 16th topic for this week, and I never have an issue. I never have a problem. They just come to me, and I feel like this practice has helped me open to my intuition more, and that's what I want for you. So I sit in, as usual, I sit in gratitude to you for making this practice possible, for supporting me, supporting yourself, and supporting the other people who are participating in this practice with us. From now on, Wind Down Wednesday for Arizonans will be at 7 p.m. And then for all of you that are changing next week, it will be an hour earlier. So again, it will be 8 o'clock for Central Time, 9 o'clock for Eastern Time, and then 6 o'clock for Pacific Time. And I realize if you are in Pacific Time, that might be a little early, but remember, these are always recorded. They're on Facebook. I post them on YouTube and on my website. So you'll still have access to the practice even if you can't make it live. So that's my business for this week. And let's talk about abundance. So this is a practice that I've really been working on for the past several months. And it's not an easy practice. It sounds kind of simple. And I think most of us, the first thing you think of when someone says abundance is financial abundance or material wealth. That's kind of, at least for me, that was, for a long time, that's what I thought of as abundance. Abundance just means having stuff. You have a lot of stuff. And as I started getting into this practice more, I realized that abundance is really everything. It could be any kind of resource. So it's the idea that I have enough, we have enough, and it's enough of any resource. We're not just talking about money or material wealth here. We're talking about things like time. Do you have enough time in your life? Is time abundant? And love. Do you have enough love in your life? What about joy? Is joy abundant for you? Health, that is one of the most important things, because if you don't have abundant health, it's really hard to have anything else. It's hard to be in joy if you don't feel well. So health is a very important, something we want to be in abundance with, that we don't maybe necessarily think of in those terms. Attention. Do you have enough attention? Maybe if you grew up and you felt like nobody was paying attention to you, you're sort of an attention seeker now. And there's a couple sides to that. We're going to talk a little bit more about the opposite of abundance. But I made a list here just of different resources that I thought of: self-care, self-love, self-esteem, connection with people. Do you have an abundant connection with people? Do you have a lot of people in your life that are supporting you? Do you have an abundant connection with spirit? Do you feel supported by the divine presence in your life? So we're going to talk more about abundance by talking about the opposite of abundance, which is scarcity, or sometimes we call it scarcity thinking. So these are mindsets that we're talking about here. You're in a mindset of abundance or a mindset of scarcity. And I think that talking about scarcity a little bit will actually help bring more understanding about abundance. It definitely has for me. So the first thing I want to say is that scarcity thinking is born out of fear. So essentially, and I think I've mentioned this before in Wind Down Wednesdays, we can kind of boil all human emotions down to either fear or love. And the negative emotions, generally, we underneath that, things like anger, is really fear. And then things like joy underneath that is really love. So scarcity thinking, or this feeling of not having enough, comes out of fear. And abundance, or the feeling that there is plenty, that comes out of love. So I also wanted to talk about how scarcity affects so many aspects of our lives, and a lot of times we don't even realize it. And that's something that I've been kind of working with in my own life as I do this abundance work. I start to recognize more and more areas of my life where I have this scarcity thinking. And scarcity thinking is really responsible for a lot of the triggering that we have. I've talked about triggering. If you read my most recent blog post about spiritual processing, I talk about triggering again. In the Living in Truth series, I talk about triggering. So I suggest you visit my website. It's paulataylorenergy.com if you want to learn more about triggering. But essentially, anytime you have a strong response to something, it's generally triggered. And we're talking about a strong negative response. So when something happens and you're like, ugh, like instantly, that usually means you're being triggered. And I think a lot of our triggering comes from this scarcity thinking, this feeling that there's not enough. So this is based on our relationship with various resources, like the list that I made. So not just things like material wealth or money or material goods, but less material ideas of something like joy or health. So I'm going to give a couple of examples just to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about and how vast scarcity is, because it can really affect anything. And once you start seeing things in like scarcity versus abundance, it really helps you step out of fear and back into love, because you understand like, oh, this is just my scarcity thinking. And scarcity thinking, all of us have scarcity thinking about something, and usually probably multiple things. And these are core beliefs. These are beliefs that came to us as children, that were reflected to us and the adults around us about how the universe works. And in some way there was not enough for us. That's what scarcity thinking is based off of. So one of the things I wanted to mention that came to me that I thought was pretty interesting is that competition is a form of scarcity thinking. And I'm not talking about competition in terms of like playing a soccer game. I'm talking about competing with other people. So it's this idea that we're competing for limited resources. And that's a scarcity mindset. That's a fear-based mindset. So it brought to my mind, several years ago, I had taken a job, and it was a situation where you were taking on clients in this practice. And I worked with a coworker who kept stealing my clients. I would have a client come to me, and then she was in charge of the booking. So then she would end up booking them with herself the next time. And at the time, she was in a scarcity mindset. Her feeling was that there was not enough. There was not enough clients, or there was not enough money, or whatever her thinking was. She needed to take these clients because she needed more. There wasn't enough. And at the time, for me, I was in abundant thinking, because the situation I was in was that I was just doing this work because I was passionate about it, because I loved it. I didn't need financially this to be my main source of income. So it was easy for me in that situation to see it with love and recognize that she was in fear and just let her have it. My feeling at the time was like, if you really need these clients badly enough, you take them. The people who are meant to come to me will come to me. And that's a good example of abundance thinking. I was just open to the idea that anything I needed would come to me. I was not thinking out of fear in that situation. But I have many situations in my life that I do think about from a scarcity perspective. So I want to give you that example, because I don't want to say, oh, I'm so abundant all the time. That's not how this works. Again, everybody has areas of abundance and scarcity, and we want to move into abundance in more areas of our life. So I don't know if you've been watching the news or paying attention to entertainment news. Now, I'm not going to talk about the real news, because this is supposed to be an uplifting encounter. But Adele, the singer, hosted Saturday Night Live this last Saturday, and she has lost over 100 pounds. She's lost she keeps saying she's lost half her body weight. And that is very triggering for me. And I started thinking about that because I have this reaction whenever somebody loses a big amount of weight. It's very triggering for me. And I started thinking about why is this? Why am I envious of this person? Why do I feel like, oh, she must be unhealthy. Why did, I got triggered. I got that feeling like this isn't fair. And no, why didn't this happen to me? And stuff like that. And so what this really revolves around, the underlying fear underneath this, the underlying scarcity thinking, is that I am not good enough. And I think all of us have those thoughts, and they come out in different ways. In my particular case, it's almost always about my body image. I am not good enough. I am not thin enough. And so that triggered, when I saw somebody who used to be bigger and now is very small, it triggered that scarcity thinking in me, like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, if only I lost weight, then I would be good enough. And to recognize that as scarcity thinking, I think is very powerful, because it helps you understand why you're getting triggered. And that's how we have the opportunity to step out of that triggering and to step back into a neutral mind and to do the spiritual work we need to step into abundance and realize, of course, you're good enough. God made us good enough. We are made of that essence, of that divine essence. And how our body looks, that's such an arbitrary thing, but especially for women, it's such a powerful way that we are controlled and that we control ourselves and each other. And for you, this may not resonate, my example, but I guarantee that everyone watching this has an area of their lives where they feel like they're not good enough. Maybe you think you're not smart enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not funny enough, you're not organized enough, whatever it is. Anytime you have that feeling like I am not enough, this is not enough, there's not enough of this out there for me, I have to take this from someone else because otherwise there won't be enough. All of that is scarcity thinking. And it's fear-based, and it's contracting, and it shuts us down. And abundance thinking opens us up. It connects us to the divine, and we can step into flow when we're in abundance thinking. So how do we do this? How do we step out of scarcity thinking and into abundance? And like anything else in this spiritual work, it's a process. So I mentioned my spiritual processing blog. If you haven't read it, I recommend that you do, because it goes through step by step my system that I use for myself to step out of triggering. So first you recognize that you're triggered, and then you do the mental processing. So let's use the Adele example. So I knew right away I was triggered. I could not stop looking at her, and I was just like, and I should be happy for this woman because she clearly worked very hard. She looks healthy. She seems happy. And why couldn't I be? So I recognized that I was being triggered. It had nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. That's what triggering is about. And then I had to mentally process it. And that's when I started thinking about, oh, this is actually this scarcity versus abundance that I've been working on for months now. And then that gives me the opportunity to spiritually process it, to bring into my body and my energetic field, to recognize where I'm holding this scarcity. How can I let it go? How can I step out of fear and back into love and into this idea that there is enough, that I am enough? And I encourage you, this is a difficult process, and it can be, because we really have to deeply examine our beliefs for this. Like, these core beliefs have been with us, as I said, since we were a child. If you grew up not having enough of something, whatever it is, money, maybe it was you didn't have enough attention from your parents, whatever it is, that stays with you until you unearth that and look at it, and then you have a chance to resolve it. So my suggestion is that you want to do this with support and with someone who can kind of keep you honest. So this is a good situation to reach out to somebody, whether it's a trusted friend or a coach or a therapist, and start to recognize these areas of thinking in your life that revolve around scarcity that you'd like to transition into abundance. So tonight for our meditation, we're going to step into that a little bit. I'm going to invite you to start looking at some of your beliefs, through meditation so that we're in that nice neutral space, because this can be triggering. This can be related to trauma. So we want to do this as usual in a gentle way. We want to be in a neutral mindset so that we can recognize these things and then invite ourselves to start working with them. So, it takes a while. I've been doing this work pretty deeply since the beginning of the year, and it's still a work in progress, just like any spiritual work. It's kind of always a work in progress, and you make progress, and then sometimes you feel like you're stagnant again, and then you make progress, and that's just the way that growth works. So we're going to explore some sources of scarcity thinking. We're going to ask ourselves some questions tonight. Where did this come from? And maybe you'll have a memory of your parents. Maybe your parents fought about money, and so now you have scarcity thinking about money. Or maybe, you were raised in a single parent home and your parent was working a lot, and so you felt like you didn't get enough attention. So we're going to ask our intuition questions about what the root of this scarcity thinking is that comes up for us. And then we're going to breathe into our fear. And we've done this before. We're just going to sit with our fear. We're going to send love to this fear. If a childhood memory comes up, we're going to sit with that child and offer that child what the child didn't get at the time. And then we're going to visualize abundance in our lives. So we're going to spend the last few moments just thinking about and visualizing and inviting the idea in, what would it be like if everything in my life was abundant? If I just stepped into this flow, into this love, and knew that there was enough of everything, enough health, enough time, enough joy, enough love. It's such an expansive state, and the more we access that, the easier it will be to step out of that scarcity when it comes up and back into abundance. So let's start our meditation. Get yourself nice and comfortable. It's kind of chilly in here. I feel like I'm shaking. All right. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Let it out through your mouth with a big sigh. Feel whatever part of you is connected to the ground, whether it's your feet or your bottom. As usual, I encourage you to sit up if possible so you don't fall asleep. Perhaps that will be easier next week when we're at an earlier time. Take a couple more nice deep breaths. And as usual, imagine the top of your head opening, that crown chakra area. Invite that unconditional love, that substance of the divine that tells you you are enough, there is enough. Invite that in through the top of your head and let it come into your face, into your scalp and jaw, your throat and neck. Invite this abundant energy of love to come into your shoulders and your upper arms. Let it come into your elbows and forearms, your wrists and hands. Invite this unconditional source of abundance into your chest and upper back. Let it come into your mid-back and your belly, your low back and low belly. Invite this golden light of unconditional love into your hips and your pelvis. Let it come down into your upper thighs, into the knees. Take a nice deep breath into the knees here, breathing this abundance, this health, this love, this vitality into your knees. And as you breathe out, send that abundance, that energy, that love down through the calves and the shins into your ankles and feet. Got a little scarcity interruption there. Let yourself become nice and settled in the body. If there's any areas of lingering tension or pain, take a couple of deep breaths into those areas. Send that abundant love and health and joy into your areas of discomfort. And as you're ready, connect to your intuition. Just set the intention that you're open to receive intuitive guidance from your guides, from the divine, from your highest self. And then ask yourself, what is your biggest area of scarcity thinking in your life right now? What does it revolve around? What does it look like in your current life? Is there a topic I brought up that you connected to instantly? As usual, your intuition will give you the right answer here. And there's probably more than one, but stick with one area, whatever seems to be the strongest or first response you have. Let's work with that tonight. And maybe this information that's coming to you revolves around a certain resource, something specific, or maybe it's a broader feeling of lack. Whatever comes to you is fine. Just focus on that for the moment. And then let yourself drift a bit and ask the question, where did this belief come from? When did this start? When did this enter my energetic field, my mental body? Was it something you saw as a child? Something that was told to you? Was it an experience you had early in your life that made you feel like there wasn't enough of some resource? Maybe you just saw this behavior reflected in the people around you and you adopted it as your own. As usual, if this starts to become intense, if you get emotional, just take some nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let yourself express the emotion as it comes up. Let yourself release it from your energetic field. You're in a safe space here, supported by the other people participating in this practice. And as you settle on this memory, this event in which your scarcity thinking started around this particular resource or the general feeling of lack, ask your intuition, ask your child self, what did you need in that moment? What could have helped you stay in the openness of abundance? As a baby, as a child, we're born open. We're born with this divine connection. And the fear comes later. So what could have helped you step back into abundance in this moment? And as the answer comes to you, offer that to your child self. Maybe it's a more recent event. That's fine too. Maybe you just needed someone to say, there is enough, or you are enough. If an affirmation comes to you, say that out loud to yourself now. It can be as simple as what I just said. There is enough. You are enough. And notice how this shifts. Maybe how you feel physically in your body, maybe how you feel about this memory or this resource that you're working with. Maybe nothing's changed, and that's okay. This is a process, and you can repeat this as many times as you need or like to. But notice if you feel even the slightest shift. Maybe your body feels more relaxed, more open. Maybe your heart is opening a bit as you send this abundance, this love to yourself in this memory. Maybe your emotional state is shifting. And before we leave this little version of yourself or recent version of yourself, wherever you are, one more time, take a hold of your own hands. You're the adult or the current version of yourself speaking to your former self here. Or wrap your arms around yourself with a big hug and whisper into your own ear, there is enough. I am enough. I have enough. The universe provides me with all the resources I need to live a joyful life, to live a healthy life, to live a life of abundance. And as you're ready, let yourself release that memory. Send your former self off with a hug or a kiss, an expression of love and abundance. Come back into the present. And once more, check in with your intuition. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stepped fully into abundance, into the thinking of abundance, into the knowing of abundance, into the feeling and flow that there is always enough, that I am enough, that I have enough? What does that look like in your own life? Bring your awareness into your heart center here, this center of joy and abundance in our body. You can bring your hands there if you'd like. Let yourself feel what abundance feels like for you. stepping out of fear and into love, out of scarcity and into abundance, out of pain and into joy. Please say the following affirmations out loud if possible. I am fully supported by the divine. The abundance of the universe is my birthright. I manifest abundance in all areas of my life. I choose love over fear. I step into abundant thought. I have everything I need to live a joyful life. I am a beautiful, divine child of the universe, and I am enough. Add any last affirmations you like to, anything that comes to you. I invite you to stay expanded. Let your crown chakra stay open to the highest good, to the abundance of the universe. Let your heart stay open to your highest good, to the abundance of the universe. Let your lower belly, your sacral chakra, stay open to the abundance of the universe, to your highest good. Let your root chakra stay open to abundance, to your highest good. Open your being to abundance. Invite it into your life. And as you're ready, bring the awareness back into the body, down through the head, into the shoulders and the arms. Let your awareness come back into the torso and the hips, the legs, the feet. Wiggle your fingers a little bit, wiggle your toes. I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body. Come back into your conscious mind. You can move your body around a little bit if that helps. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me. I encourage you to welcome abundance into your life, to recognize when you're stepping into scarcity, and have the courage to breathe into that fear and open to abundance, open to love, open to divine flow. These affirmations that we're using are very powerful when you're in this state of neutrality, of expansion, and you introduce these affirmations. They reverberate through your energetic field, through your body. And repetition is the key here. So repeat this meditation as you like, as often as you can. Repeat these affirmations to yourself and see how things shift in your life. See how abundance starts to show up in surprising and beautiful ways for you. Abundance of joy and love and health. The feeling that you are enough as you are, just as you are, without changing anything about yourself. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your night and a wonderful rest of your week. And I will see you next week, half an hour earlier or an hour and a half earlier for some of you, for Wind Down Wednesday.